should I have like
Welcome to Media Path. I am Louise Palanker.
And I'm Fritz Coleman.
You know, the digital age allows our media paths to transcend time and space as we discover and rediscover the books and movies and television and music that resonate with us and stay with us. If you grew up in the 70s, then you well know the catchy and touching sound of Gilbert O'Sullivan. Gilbert combines warmth with whimsy in a way that finds a permanent place in our hearts. His hits Claire, Get Down, and Alone Again Naturally have been enriching our spirits for generations. Gilbert will be making 3 exclusive West Coast appearances over Thanksgiving weekend, and today he's coming to us from his home in England. Gilbert will join us in just a few moments. But first, Fritz, what have you got for us?
I have a great movie. This movie is streaming and in theaters at the same time. And as I've said before, I am a sucker for a true story. This one is listed as inspired by a true story. That means the circumstances and events are true, but some of the dialogue is manufactured. It's a courtroom drama where Southern politics, racism, and injustice for the economically depressed all clash. Jamie Foxx plays a flamboyant personal injury attorney from Mississippi, Willie E. Gary. He has a client, Jeremiah O'Keefe, a senior white funeral home owner played by Tommy Lee Jones. O'Keefe hires Gary to sue a major national funeral home corporation for welching on a deal. The problem is that this is essentially a contract dispute, an area in which Willie Gary has no experience. But that doesn't stop him from pursuing a potentially huge payday. Jamie Foxx's character is a smooth, black church preacher type, just oozing a slick personal injury persona. This happens to play well with the all-black jury of this trial. He relates to them beautifully, knows what's important to them, knows the language to use to win them over. Tommy Lee's character is a man who has had some bad luck in business, but refuses to give up and wants to stick it to the major corporation on principle. Think in terms of Johnny Cochran as the plaintiff attorney in a giant tobacco lawsuit. This film was based on an article in 1999 in New Yorker magazine. Some of the reviews mentioned an Oscar nomination for Jamie. I agree. Wonderful performances by both Jamie and Tommy and the others as well. Great movie.
Wow. In theaters?
In theaters and streaming at the same time. I don't know how they do that or the purpose of that, but that's what they're doing.
But you go for where the popcorn is.
Yeah, I do.
I appreciate that. I would like to share a couple of podcasts with you that have captured my attention. The first is from NBC News, and it's called Grapevine. It comes to us from Mike Hixenbaugh and Antonia Hilton, who brought us Southlake, which delved into a Texas town's outraged backlash against a diversity awareness program designed to address the racism experienced by black students in its schools. Within that vein of parental fear and outcry comes the new podcast Grapevine. Centered in a town next door to Southlake, here, a mom fears that her teen son has been convinced by a teacher to switch genders. Mike Hixenbaugh and Antonia Hilton look into the story and find a transgender child longing to be understood, a mother determined to put God first, and an English teacher caught in the middle. But there is so much more to consider. They uncover a fringe religious movement inspiring an evangelical quest to overtake what they call the 7 mountains of life: family, religion, media, business, entertainment, government, and education. Within their 2-dimensional framework of God's will and everything else, LGBTQ kids are finding no safe space. Grapevine gives us a personal perspective on American families facing the wrath and judgment of an increasingly fearful and intolerant right wing. And Fritz, stoking these fires of conservative fury is a mostly concealed, powerful background figure named Leonard Leo. You may be familiar with Leo as Clarence Thomas's luxury accommodations benefactor. What we're learning is that if you're a young person looking for a lifetime of gratis yacht and resort travel, head for law school and look for the Federalist Society sign-up table at the Student Center. The podcast We Don't Talk About Leonard comes from ProPublica and WNYC's On the Media. Leo has been influencing the rightward leaning of our courts for decades through the Federalist Society and dark money donors. Those in his political circles whose strings he pulls do not discuss him openly, thus the show's title. Many sources spoke to reporters anonymously. Systemically, Leo has used and exerted influence to construct a network of pre-approved conservative judges and carefully place them throughout our judicial system to not only decide cases according to plan, but to bring the correct cases to the highest court, even if they need to be reverse engineered. He has built a machine to do exactly that. Having commandeered the courts with his supermajorities, Leo is moving on to fight wokeism in schools as well as in environmental, social, and governance policies affecting corporate America. In other words, he is ascending the seven mountains. We Don't Talk About Leonard explores the web of money, influence, and power behind the conservative takeover of America's courts and beyond, as orchestrated by Leonard Leo. It comes to us from ProPublica and On the Media.
And where's the accountability? I mean, all this stuff was revealed by all the ProPublica and all these media outlets, and there hasn't been one thing that's happened. Where's Ginny Thomas in all these indictments? You know, it's unbelievable to me.
Yeah. I can't answer your question, Fritz.
I don't expect you to.
It was a gotcha question, and I feel
no, I'm
really,
not gotching you.
This is when I just stare at maybe I smoke my cigarette with the long ash like Nathan Thurm and say, I didn't say that, you said that. But I would rather introduce Gilbert O'Sullivan. His distinctive style of catchy, introspective songwriting grabbed our attention in 1972. The smash single, Alone Again Naturally, topped charts throughout the world, spending 6 consecutive weeks at #1 in the States. It was nominated for Song of the Year and Record of the Year at the Grammys and may have won both, were it not for that peskily brilliant Roberta Flack. Subsequent hits for Gilbert included Claire, Get Down, and Out of the Question. He is a songwriting soul whose newest album is called Driven. He will be making 3 exclusive West Coast USA appearances over Thanksgiving weekend in Phoenix, San Francisco, and right here in Los Angeles. So check out our show notes for all of the details, and we'll be discussing them here on the show as well. Please welcome, if you will, Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, hello, Louise and Fritz. Nice to be talking to you.
It's so nice to see you.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Where are you exactly? Because
I'm in England. I'm in Jersey, which is in the Channel Islands, which is a small island about half an hour by plane to the UK.
Now,
it's a lovely island.
I have one personal question for you. Can you see water from inside your home?
No, but it's only around the corner.
That'll do.
Because,
that'll do.
It's a small island, so we are surrounded by sea. We're quite inland, but in a nice location. Place to live.
I know lots of people are really looking forward to you coming to L.A. Is this the first time you've performed at the Troubadour? Because that in itself is historic.
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting because way back in the early 70s, we know that Elton John, that kind of made him.
That was the breakout place for him.
Yeah, and of course, then you had people like James Taylor, Carole King. It was a renowned venue. And when my tours was set up for America after the success of Alone Again, Claire, and Get Down, my manager, Gordon Mills, he managed Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck, who were performing in large theaters, if not arenas and stuff. So he had to make the choice. Do I let Gilbert go into a Troubadour-like scenario, or do I put him out like Tom and Engelbert? Big mistake was made. They put me out like Tom and Engelbert, which wasn't a good thing, because even if you're selling a lot of records, it doesn't guarantee bums on seats. And so my first tour was a wonderful disaster. But yes, the lesson learned, I should have really followed that path of doing something like the Troubadour, those smaller venues, to build up a reputation if it was going to be good.
Well, it's a brilliant place for you to return. When was the last time you toured the United States?
But 3 years ago, we got back into America because I have a really good band, and we've toured Europe and the UK and Japan. But to get into America was very difficult. But 3 years ago, with my guitar player, we decided to do an up close and personal, a more kind of just a smaller show, just 2 hours of just my songs, but it was kind of intimate.
Yeah.
And so to hear the lyrics more clearly. And because we did that successfully, that opened the door for us to come over to you. So we've done North America, and coming to the West Coast is something I really wanted to do right from the early 70s and stuff. So I'm so looking forward to appearing there.
Well, we cannot wait to have you here. Now, let's go back to your childhood a few years. You were one of 6 children. Your mother, May, ran a sweet shop, and your father was a butcher. So you had all your food groups covered. And you say that you come from a working class background, but that it was always important to your family to have a piano.
I think every working class family in those days seemed to have a piano in the house. I think the reason being that they felt that if one of their children could learn to play it, they could maybe earn a few pounds, a few dollars in the pub. So I think that's the reasoning behind. So they may not have had much money and stuff, but they certainly always had a piano. So the piano was in our house. My mother wanted one of us to be musically inclined, and nobody else, and none of the other children, my brothers and sisters, really took to the music, but I did.
So everyone kind of walked around the piano, or maybe placed items on top of the piano. And you said,
yeah, I mean, it's a good point you make there, because I get so annoyed when I see grand pianos with so much stuff on it. I feel like lifting up the lid. But no, I mean, the pianos in those days were pianos which I wrote on were just uprights and stuff. So,
yeah. Because I've seen the videos of you. The earlier stuff that hit in England, and if you're in America, you haven't heard some of the Gilbert's early stuff. It's just magical. So there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, and you're always playing in such a percussive style, because your drums were your first instrument.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to learn guitar. I'm left-handed, so it was difficult to get a left-handed guitar in those days. But so I kind of moved on to drums and stuff. And yeah, the left hand is the drums, and my right hand, I'm not a very good piano player, but I'm rhythmic. So I have a good rhythm with my right hand, and I have a good drum rhythm with my left hand, which helps me when I write the rock songs.
Yeah, and it's all about feel too. So that resonates.
You mentioned Elton earlier. I mean, there's some astonishing records that you have set. You're on record as the biggest selling solo artist in the UK, bigger than Elton John, bigger than Rod Stewart, bigger than David Bowie. You had 16 top 40 records and 6 number ones. And that's a pretty astonishing accomplishment. And I suppose you were considered part of the British invasion, although the latter third of the British invasion, right? The early 70s.
Yeah, I think the early 70s. I mean, the success in America really took everybody by surprise, mostly me. I came into the business to be a success where I lived, which was in England and stuff. And so it was a surprise when everything took off around the world. The first success with Nothing Rhymed was a huge hit around the world, not in America, but it was in Japan, Australia. But I didn't go. The interesting thing for me is my manager kind of knew that I wanted to spend time writing. And the danger is, if you have a hit record, what tends to happen is you immediately get offers to go everywhere. And if you do that, you kind of lose out on the writing element. So the second album you do may not be as good because you've only written it in the gaps you've had between touring. So the great thing for me was that with all the success of the first record, I still, apart from TV shows and radio interviews and press, I was able to spend all that time at home writing songs for the next record. Because the key to everything I do is the songwriting. Right. The reason I'm talking to you, Louise and Fritz, is because of the songs. It's not because of me as an artist.
I think you're one of the greatest songwriters of that era, without question. You have such beautiful sensitivity in your words. But you made a great comment about your relationship with touring and your relationship with recording. You said after your Israeli performance that even if it's a beautiful show, the feeling of that beauty goes away immediately, but a long-lasting hit record lasts forever. So you were drawn to the writing even more than the performing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't analyze anything that I do other than I have the ability to write songs, which I've done since I was around 14. It's just one of those weird things. I love music, and so the result of liking music means that you get into an area where you can write, because you start off by copying all the people you like, and you end up writing hopefully original songs. Yeah, it's the joy of songwriting for me is the reason. At 76 years of age, I'm still that 14-year-old sitting on a piano trying to come up with something.
Mm-hmm. And that it's such a gift to have something that captures us for a lifetime. That we want to, for some people it's golf. And, you're not going to ball around some grass and putting it into a hole. And sometimes I think, who are you serving? But with a song, my gosh, you are really serving humanity. And that's a gift. I'm not taking anything away from people who are going to go out and play golf after they listen, or maybe listening to this podcast on the golf course. That definitely feeds your soul for sure. But a song, having that ability, I think that's God's, you're God's gift to the rest of us to give us that, because we need it so desperately. But I wanted to talk about, your instincts as a performer, because you always knew what image you wanted to present. And, you'd carve out an image, even if your manager wasn't, when in England, before you hit here, because we only saw the sweater and the letter G, but in England, people saw you and you presented yourself as a like a silent film star. You have to pick out clothing that you're going to look forward to putting on? Like what? Because otherwise you're just going to dread every performance. So talk about what goes into you carving out that image.
Well, I mean, it has nothing to do with the writing of the songs and stuff. So, I mean, I like to separate the two because there's no way are they connected. But I just like it's dare to be different. I mean, the Beatles were the catalyst for me because they didn't have to have Beatle haircuts and collarless jackets and stuff. They would have been successful because they wrote great songs. But that image kind of stuck with me. So by the mid '60s, with Flower Power, long hair was here to stay. Everybody wanted you to look like James Taylor. So all the record companies that I was with were always saying to me, just wear jeans and a long shirt and please grow your hair. Because I had a hairstyle that's currently the fashion, very short. But in those days, in the mid-'60s, to go around with a pudding face and a haircut, I looked kind of freakish. But I just did it to be different. As I say, it had nothing to do with the seriousness of writing songs, but it had everything to do with me wanting to be different.
But you
no
knew.
No record company liked it. I mean, they all hated it. They all said, please, Gilbert, you'll be more successful if you try to look like everybody else and stuff.
Yeah, but I love that about you, that you knew, no, if I create something that's distinctive and cool and sharp and also timeless, you know, as a kid, I first saw you in the sweater with a G, and I gave no thought to that's how you were going to dress forever or that's who you were. It was just what you wore that day on Mike Douglas or, you know, whatever I saw. Yeah. And it's...
Yeah, I mean, the image thing is just, it's fun to do because it's not serious. It's just light. The Buster Keaton was the sort of the reason I got the G sweater. I saw a Buster Keaton film. The reason for my first image was Charlie Chaplin. I used to hire Charlie Chaplin jacket from a theatrical costumers. They always used to say, I hired for the weekend. And they used to say to me, what's the production you want it for? And I said, I just want to look in the mirror over the weekend. That's all.
You made a comment about that same thing in your documentary, which was that the audience has to allow the performer to grow up. They shouldn't expect that you're going to look exactly the same on stage now that you did when you were a young man. They have to allow you to grow up, which is brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, once you've established yourself with an image, I mean, I was determined. There was no way that if Gordon Mills said to me, look, I don't like your image, and therefore, unless you change it, I won't manage you, I would have walked. But Gordon Mills, to his credit, said, I don't like the image, but I will stick with it because I know the reason you're going to be successful isn't because of that. It'll be because of the songs and stuff. And, you know, so it's lighthearted. It's just fun to do. And you know, once you've done that for a few years, then you can kind of just concentrate on the writing. I look now the way I've looked for the last 20, 30 years and stuff because it isn't necessary anymore.
It's not like, not rather than being stuck with the name Engelbert Humperdinck forever, which is also, that was designed to cut through. And it did, but now that, you know, at least clothing you can change, you know. Can't you?
Yeah. And, you know, I didn't call myself Gilbert O'Sullivan to begin with. Like, my real name is O'Sullivan, of course, but I called myself just Gilbert because it's that kind of character that I wanted to create, like a Chaplin-esque character. You must remember, and Elton would tell you this, that when you're sitting on the piano for 2 hours, you're not moving anywhere. You're static. So if you can do something to make people look at you and think, wow, you know, there's something other than you sitting there, because we don't go around with a microphone on a piano up and down the stage. So it's part of the image thing for us, is that to look a little bit different sitting at the piano, and I certainly did that, and Elton certainly did.
Exactly.
You know, you had the same trajectory that most rock stars have. You were hot as hot for a while. Then in the mid-'70s, you sort of fell out of favor, and you couldn't buy a break. But you made a brilliant remark about that. You said the first people to love you are the first people to bail on you after a while. And I guess that's true. The first people to get on the Gilbert O'Sullivan train just get tired of it before anybody else and are gone.
Yeah, that's right. And why not? It's up to them. I mean, you get on with what you're doing, and then if people like you for however long, that's fine. And if they don't, that's also fine.
But I would I beg to differ. I think that kids go through phases, and what they love at 12, at 16, they have to say to their friends that they've outgrown. But they're coming to your concert today because they still love it. They never stopped loving it. They just grew up and had to have more mature tastes or cooler or what have you that happens in the arc of somebody's maturation as they go through adolescence. But I promise you, If you love a song, you love that song forever. I think it stays in your heart forever. I really do.
Yeah, and I think that when you do the concerts, I mean, when we do the concerts and I meet people and stuff, of course there are people there who got into me with the hit singles, but their love of my material stems also from the songs on my albums and stuff. And if you've made a lot of albums, it's kind of nice to know that people are into those too. But yeah, so people are there right from the beginning, dedicated fans all around the world. We've just come back from Japan. And I'm meeting people who have been following me for the last 20, 30 years.
Now
that's really nice.
Yeah, you're a hot item in Japan, and you always have been. So talk about the Japanese fans, because they can be just so warm and loving. And we in the States have no awareness of what it's like for artists that are embraced by the Japanese people. So talk about that.
Yeah, you have to be prepared because they're quite, the Japanese they appreciate you, but the clapping they clap. They don't sort of move around and they don't react shouting or screaming. That's how it's been, but it's changing a little now. They're getting more excitable. We found this time compared to 2-3 years ago that they are beginning to enjoy themselves more, and they're standing up at the end this time, which is really nice and stuff to see, because they are a wonderful audience. Interesting thing with the Japanese, with the records they put out of mine, they put the lyrics, obviously the Japanese version, but they also have the English version, because for many people that's how they learn English, because they see the song lyrics, they listen to the song lyrics, and that gets them into English words and stuff. So that's part of the reason why they want the English translation on the CDs that they're released over.
That's so cool.
You have written such poignant, profound lyrics, and one that was often misinterpreted was Alone Again Naturally, and the kid walks up the tower and you wonder if he's going to jump off. And I remember in an interview with Burt Bacharach, he said to you, you must have had a similar profound experience for you to write about that. And you said, that's not true. If you're a good writer, you don't have to have experienced a situation to be able to write thoughtfully about it. And I thought that was so wonderful. You really don't. The talented writer, whether it's a novelist or anything, is somebody that can observe something, absorb it, and put it in their own words.
Yeah, and I think the key is, you just said it, you don't have to experience, but an understanding is the key factor. What makes you a good lyricist is if it's not based on experience, it's based on an understanding of what you're talking about. The Alone Again talks about suicide, jumping off so that's a serious subject. It's not light. So yes, have you experienced that? No, but I put myself into that position of trying to understand that, and that's the joy of songwriting. That I've written a song which I love performing in America because it's written about an event of 9/11 and stuff, all they wanted to say. And the interesting thing with that, I just really get into the subject. It's a serious subject, but the joy of writing that song for such a serious and horrific event is the reaction I get, particularly in America, like in New York, when we performed it and stuff. So things like that make the whole process really special. That's the power of lyrics and stuff. You can do the light stuff, the gentle rock and roll stuff, simple, get down, silly lyric in some respects. But then you can get into those serious subjects, and that's part of the joy of songwriting.
And part of for all of us as a human experience, listening to a sad song or a very poignant song is like getting an embrace when we feel sad. We don't feel so alone when we're listening to the lyrics of a song that is giving voice to how we feel. We feel embraced. And so sometimes someone just needs to put on a song like Alone Again Naturally and have a good cry and know that this is universal. We all have these feelings. You're just being human. It's okay. Yeah,
and it kind of takes my breath away. The reaction that I get from people who have that sentiment that you just expressed. That's really it kind of, it hits you too, because the key, it's the one song alone that I never, when I'm rehearsing, I never sing the lyrics. I just go through it to maintain the chord structure. But it's a serious song, and the reaction I get, because they sing along with me in most theaters and stuff. It really makes it's a very special.
I can imagine that's one of your peak moments in a concert, playing that song. We're in a really dark world right now. There's such a chasm between political sides and social sides. When you're doing a concert, is there a part of your repertoire that people are reacting more strongly to, like you talked about your 9/11 song? Is that the stuff that really seems to resonate with people now, or do they still resonate with your beautiful, poignant, soulful, lovely songs like Claire?
Again, Fritz, I'm not there to kind of no self-analysis, which I think is a dangerous thing to do. I just get out there. We rock it up, we slow it down, we have a little sense of humor, we take a sample of new, 2 or 3 songs from the latest album, but over 2 hours, they're all my songs. So the variety is very important, because if every song was just "I love you, you love me, baby," I'd be in trouble.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice to know you have that diverse amount of material, and again, collectively, that you can do the light, the shade, the dark, the humorous. That I think is what allows you as a songwriter to keep on wanting to do it.
Does it sometimes overwhelm you when you're on the stage and you realize all of the sounds coming off the stage were generated by you? Is that a beautiful feeling, or overwhelming?
Yeah, it's a lovely feeling, but I don't sort of view it like that. I mean, it's just the people are there to see you, and most of them you think are there because they really like you and stuff. So the expectation is that we put on a good show. We play the songs that they want to hear. I have to say, for the songs we do in 2 hours, when I meet people afterwards, they say, "You didn't play this one."
Oh, of course.
But again, that's kind of nice too, because what I tend to say to them is that will you, next time we perform here, where we are, your song will be in there. I'll make no problem. I'll stick it in.
They each have their own relationship with you that you really know nothing. You know nothing about. It's between them and you, and then they have this moment where they get to say a couple words to you, but you mean so much to them, and they really have their own connection to you.
Yeah, and Louise, the basics are that you want to come out of the theater after 2 hours to be in a happy mood. And so I tell the audience on the current tour that when we were in New York a year ago, because we have a break in the middle, we do an hour and then we have a 50-minute break, and then we come back out for the second hour. But in New York, we didn't tell them there would be an interval. So after the first hour, they started to leave the theater. We were saying, "Come back, come back."
Oh my God!
I've done that. Cleared the room and they never came back.
One of the ladies working at the theater said, as they were leaving, she said they had smiles on their faces. So even though they only saw half a show, they had enjoyed it.
I was watching your documentary, and an ironic piece of that was your first performance in Israel, in that beautiful amphitheater there. And as I'm watching that, I'm looking at this beautiful, peaceful setting. And I'm wondering if you are reflecting back on that moment now with all this turmoil that's over in the Middle East right now. It just seemed sad to look at that peaceful, what a beautiful venue to perform in.
That's absolutely. I mean, interestingly enough, on that album that came out around that time, I had actually put on a Justice for Palestinians, Peace for Israelis. That was the kind of feeling we all had back then. Yes. We were meant to go to Israel earlier this year and stuff, but we didn't do it because things were starting to, the demonstrations against the government over the policy that they were being undemocratic, and so there was a lot of that was going on. So we ended up not going that time, but we look forward to going back there. But what's happening is just.
Hard to get your head around. It's terrible.
It's horrendous what's going on.
You were involved in 2 precedent-setting court cases. One must have been very hard for you emotionally because it was with and against your manager, Gordon. Explain how that went and why it was precedent-setting.
Well, it's precedent-setting because it's a conflict of interest. I mean, he's my manager and he's also the record company boss. So who's giving me the best deal? He can't give me the best deal if it goes against the company. So that's one of the issues, conflict of interest. But it all stems from, it became a huge event, but it started off when Gordon Mills took me on in 1970, 69, 70, I had been promised something for songwriters that was new and innovative. And that was songwriters have been given the opportunity to have their own company within the publishing company. So for example, you have 100%, 50% goes to the songwriter, the writer, you can't touch that, but the other 50% goes to the publisher. So what was being introduced for writers in 1969-70 was that they'd have their own company within the 50% of the publisher share. So they'd get a portion of that, but it would give them some rights on the publishing side. So I said to Gordon, when he took me on, I said, that's been promised to me by my publisher, because I still had 2 years to go with the contract I'd signed in 67. And Gordon said, look, if you're successful, you'll get it. So as the years went by, I would occasionally say to Gordon now and then, is there any news on this interest of songs that company I could have? And Gordon said, no, don't worry, you'll be getting it. And that went on. And then when we broke up, due to my wanting to work with other producers, because I felt that mid-70s dip could be rectified if I was to work with different producers and stuff. And Gordon said, if I don't produce your records, because he had produced them all, the earlier records, he said, then that's it. I don't want you to work with other producers. Well, I said, look, if I work with other producers, you're still my manager. So what could be wrong with that? And we could get more success. Anyway, he didn't agree to that. And I had to decide what to do. And I'm still very determined. I'm still looking out there for more success. So we broke up. I shook his hand. I thought that was it would be okay. He wasn't happy about it. But we shook hands, and that was it. And then when I went into the offices days later, after everybody knew I'd broken up with Gordon, and then the small company I'd been promised went out the window. So that's the only reason I went to lawyers. I said, I've been promised something and it hasn't been given to me. That's what I want to go to court on. But they all said, look, you have to have more than that to go to.
And it turned out to be more successful than you even had wished for or hoped for.
I got back to all my masters. I got back all the publishing, but I wasn't asking for that. I think there is a danger. A lot of people have tried it. A lot of people have used my case as an example of what they could do. Elton and Bernie Taupin. They tried to win back stuff. Judges may not know much about music, but they know when people are being greedy, or they've been fair, or they've been minded. And so I think that that's an important factor. And so throughout that court trial, it was clear all I was looking for was that interest in my songs. But the fact that the judge gave me the shirts off their back just goes to show that everything kind of went our way. The conflict of interest is a major issue. And so I was really happy, but and to this day, I own the masters, I own the publishing, so I'm very happy to have that. But again, as I pointed out to you, you see how it started. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about...
No, it's principles, of course. Yeah. And you were involved in another very important case that turned out to be the first one of its kind and the first of many, which is Biz Markie, the famous rap artist, sampled one of your songs. You asked him not to do it because they have to get permission, and he did it anyway, and that launched into a court case.
Yeah, I mean, he sampled the intro to Alone Again. And they asked us, I was in the middle of recording an album when this came forward, asking if they could use it. And I hadn't heard it. So we said to them, send it over to us. And when I listened to it, and then I learned he was a comic rapper, I said, no way am I going to allow that. The one song in my catalog that I make sure is never used for comical reasons or for you is Alone Again Nationally. I turned down major sync licenses for films that had a comedic in it. And so we said to him, look, no, you can't use it and stuff. But he went ahead and did it anyway. So what do? I had to go to court in New York, get lawyers in, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars before we even got into court. And when we got into court, they weren't even there. But the judge, again, you see, this goes back to what I said about judges. They don't have to know a lot about music, but they certainly know about right and wrong and honesty and greed and stuff. The judge, here's what happened, just to cut a long story short. The judge said to them after a few days, he said, it was coming up to the Christmas season, and Biz Markie's record label was controlled by Warner's, major company. They had planned releases for the Christmas schedule. The judge said, if you don't remove all these, if you don't remove this, get this song taken off, I'll have all the Warner product stopped for the Christmas releases.
Wow. Hello. That got their
you
attention.
can imagine the S hit the fan big time. And it was all over.
I think there's a lot of squirrely stuff that goes on in the music industry that's tolerated. And then as soon as you put it in front of a judge, the judge goes, what? Because we bend all kinds of rules just because folks want to be in the music industry. They want to get along. They want their product out there. They want to have a voice. They want to be able to perform. And so people sort of suck it up. But like once it enters a courtroom, it's like probably crazy to people in the legal profession that folks have been getting away with this kind of stuff. That's why your cases were so, definitive.
Yeah, and I think, even in recent times, George Michael, his lawyers had my case to use because George Michael, when Faith was a massive success for him in America, he received huge advances from the record company. And then the next album he was bringing out, I think they gave him 6 or 7 million to start with. And so the second album, he refused to do any videos. He refused to do any filming and promotion for it. They were furious. So that caused a conflict between him and the record company. And so he wanted to get out. So he went to court to win back the master rights and stuff. And they would use O'Sullivan's case as an example of an artist who got it back.
Wow.
But the danger is that George should realize that all he had to do was to say, look, I want everything back. I want to move on. I'll give you back half the money you gave me if you let me do it. But they don't do that. He wanted to keep the money and still get everything back. So it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Who were your musical inspirations as a child?
The biggest musical inspiration on the songwriting front are Lennon and McCartney. On the vocal side, Bob Dylan. So I used to sing like Bob Dylan and try and write songs like Lennon and McCartney.
Did you work with either of those in your career?
No, I was invited to a Paul McCartney party, and he was at the other side of the ballroom dancing, but I didn't bother him. I'm not really starstruck. I mean, I admire good writing, great writing and stuff, and they certainly had a huge influence for me. McCartney more than Lennon for me, I suppose. And Dylan, because I don't have a great voice, distinctive voice, and Bob Dylan certainly has a distinctive voice. And way back then with freewheeling and stuff, I could be in the garden shed singing Masters of War and many of his songs. So those were the two major influences.
Mm-hmm. And who has approached you and told you that they were influenced by you that we would find interesting?
Well, I mean, it's interesting when you think that the likes of Neil Diamond and Neil Sedaka, and you've got Michael Buble and Diana Krall recording that song. That shows that there must be something about me that they like when they want to record that song.
Yeah, you've been covered Morrissey, which is interesting. I think that's such an interesting, and the Pet Shop Boys. Lots of people have covered your work.
Well, the good thing with Morrissey the interesting with Morrissey was that his favorite song is Nothing Rhymed, and he loved how I dressed.
Yeah.
He loved that image of the pudding basin haircut, the Chaplin jacket. He really loved that. But the nice thing for me with him was that he recorded the B-side of Nothing Rhymed.
Oh.
And I have a version of that, which is wonderful. And when I heard him do it, I thought, I'm going to do that. So I've actually sang the B-side of Nothing Rhymed in recent times simply because of Morrissey's version of it.
So that's an inspiration loop that we're creating.
Yeah,
so
nice.
You're not the big pomp and circumstance guy. You don't like to do red carpet events. You're relatively shy. You're not, I so understand this and empathize with this. You're not good at promoting yourself. After you separated your relationship with Gordon, your brother Kevin became your manager. Does he still represent you for your work?
Not my manager, Fritz. Just an assistant to me. He looks after all the finance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I love the way you described it. He has a way of making people comfortable, and he's very smooth and charming, and he does everything that you don't do when you meet other people.
Yeah, I'm notorious for writing letters to a bad review or something.
I know.
My daughter, who now works with me, who is preparing everything for you, she stops me from writing those kind of letters and stuff. So the thing with good management is that I can overreact to things, and so that I get really hurt if there's criticism. I mean, you shouldn't really let it bother you, but I can. I get really kind of affected by a bad comment, even if it's only, my daughter would say, dismiss it, don't worry. But it plays on me. It's a strange thing that.
Good for you. You stick up for yourself. And did they ever publish any of your rebuttals to a bad review in like the London Times or anything like that?
No, I think that there's certain reviewers that I've written to have responded, and it's okay. It's not. It doesn't bother me now, but up to about 10 years ago, it bothered me quite a lot. But since my daughter's taken over, she makes sure that she can be dismissive of these kind of comments, because for every bad comment, there's a few good ones.
Yeah, and also there's a million people that read it and disagree.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully.
no, I know, because a lot of people aren't going to take the effort to write and disagree, but they're going to read it and say, this is ridiculous. And you know you've done that when you've read something that you disagree with. It kind of gets people even more in your corner when they feel like, you know, that's required, because how dare they go this master songwriter, how dare they, you know, it gets people's cackles up.
And the bad ones sting worse than the complimentary ones. It's like a performance. If you have a bad performance, the neurosis of that lasts a lot longer than having a good performance that goes away the next day and you're off to the races.
I remember, for example, in the late 70s, remember the punk era, 78 to 79?
Sure.
I mean, I went out on the road in the mid-70s with professional musicians and stuff, and top-class musicians. When the punk era came along, I decided that I would take a semi-pro band. We kind of auditioned bands, young bands of just fiery. And, you know, we just got in the spirit of that, but I got hammered by the press. I got hammered by the press for going on the road and doing that kind of singing my songs, but having a sort of unprofessional kind of band to give a kind of loose. Because you know, I get in the spirit of that and that whole punk thing. You know, I can.
It's like the Dylan at the Newport Pop Festival thing, where he got hammered for being electrified and got booed off the stage or whatever it was.
Yeah, and when he first appeared in England, and he went and he did, well, not his first appearance in England. His first appearance in England was just him and the guitar. But when he did his first concert in England with the band, you know, there were people in the audience shouting out, you know,
traitor,
there you go.
Satan. How many pieces do you take with you when you're on the road now?
How many pieces?
Players, you know.
Well, players, just currently it's just myself and my guitar player.
Oh,
and,
nice. That's
piano and guitar.
beautiful.
That's it. It's intimate, up close and personal.
Beautiful.
It's nice because people get to hear the lyrics more clearly in that kind of atmosphere.
Absolutely.
We're really enjoying it.
That's great for the Troubadour to go in there that way too. That'll be fun.
Absolutely.
And I also think that when it's an older song that someone grew up with, they heard it one way as a child, and they will hear it differently, having lived a bit more of their lives. And
yeah. Perhaps again, it's Louise. I'm not. You know, I don't kind of look into those reasons why or how or if. But you're probably right in what you're saying. So for me, it's just, you know, the simplicity is not rocket science. I write songs, make a record, I get out on the road, promotion it. We do concerts, and I hope people like them. And that's it. And it's, you know, thus far it's worked out pretty well. So long may that continue for as long as it will.
I think next to Alone Again Naturally, your most beautiful song is Claire. Mm-hmm. And it's such a sweet song, particularly if you're the father of a daughter. You wrote this song because you babysat for your manager's child, Claire, who was 2 or 3 at the time. And it's such a heart-wrenchingly beautiful song. And then you made this comment that these days I could never write a song like that because people would misinterpret my energy with this little girl. And I thought, wow, that is sad, but it's so true.
Yeah. One of the saddest things I can recollect on this issue is I read an article by a very popular person who I think he's very popular in the newspaper, and he had a friend who said to him, "Look, there's a Saturday morning radio show for children, presented by this particular presenter, and they play lots of songs for children." And this man said to this big presenter, said, "You know, my daughter really loves Claire. Do you think you know this person who presents this show? Could you ask him to include Claire in?" And when he went to this person and said, "You know, a friend of mine, could you play Claire?" And he's, "Oh no, we can't do that." So it's kind of really sad.
Really sad.
That's the world we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
We perform it on stage. We do it all over England. We do it in Japan. We do it in America. You know, we really love the song. And the thing with Claire is we still see her. We have a good relationship with each other. I'm proud of the song. Proud that I wrote it.
Oh my God, it's breathtaking. It's a beautiful song.
I'm sure she's proud of it too.
Oh yeah. There's a part in your documentary where you sort of have a meeting with her after a while. She came to see you at the Hyde Park concert or something, and it was very touching. And she and I guess the people she was with were crying at the performance?
Well, it was not the other people, she was, because my daughters took her there. We were in front of about 24,000 people, and we invited her along, of course. And so when I sang Claire, it was quite tearful because it means so much to her and stuff. And Gordon's wife, who passed away only a few years ago, I had a really good ending up relationship with her. And for me to write that song, for it to be the success, Gordon Mills played the harmonica. It's Claire, of course, who laughs at the end, and Joe cooking in the background.
So it's a family memory. It's a treasure.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. Talk about opening. When you began, you opened up for lots of big acts, right, on the road, like the Carpenters. And we know that there were some interesting events that took place when you were opening up for the Carpenters. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, well, I knew they loved it. Started because they really loved Alone Again, and so they were doing a Hollywood Bowl. Is it the Hollywood Bowl? I think it was the Hollywood Bowl, a big concert, and they wanted me to be a guest on it. And, so we're up for it. I went to Los Angeles, and on the day of rehearsal, to go out with the musicians that I had, the piano was there, Richard Carpenter's piano. It was locked. So I couldn't play the piano.
Oh, man. Well, that's terrible.
So the big mistake my manager made was not saying, right, if you don't unlock the piano, there won't be a guest.
That's bad.
Richard's piano was locked. It was locked up?
Yeah.
Backstage? Yeah. So what was Richard going to do?
No, on stage. He couldn't do the performance on stage.
So what happened? What happened?
So my manager should have pulled me out and said, if you don't unlock the piano, you won't be going on. And so I had to go out and play that piano on the night. And there were all these buttons on, and I really got a bit lost. I was really kind of taken aback from it. So it wasn't a happy experience. And when I came off the stage, I was almost in tears because I was really down about the whole thing. As I say, I shouldn't have really done it, not having had time to rehearse. But there you go. I had a dressing room full. I've never seen so many flowers and fruit baskets in my whole life. But it didn't, I was gone.
When you perform, you play with a baby grand or something, right? You don't play with an electronic piano, do you?
No, I do. I play with an RD1000 keyboard, which changes key. I use 3 keys. I have concert pitch, a semitone below, a tone below. As one gets older, singers will tell you this. As you get older, your voice gets deeper. And so people like Rod Stewart can't be as raucous as they used to be. Even Elton doesn't have the softness in his voice now. He's still well able to sing. But that softness goes because as one gets older, you need to really take it down. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned that over the years and stuff. So the keyboard I have is really good. I also have an electric piano sound in it. And it looks good. It's not just a crossbar stand.
I would like to hear a little bit about your music room, which is depicted in the documentary. And it's the kind of thing that makes your jaw drop. Anybody would want to walk in. And I'm sure you don't. Maybe that's the room that none of the kids were ever allowed in. Tell us about that room.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the one room the housekeeper's not allowed in.
I had a feeling.
It's organized chaos. I like everything to be where it is, and the room is covered with CDs. It's covered with documents. The music room is I've made it smaller so that it's just a piano and a cassette player. I do all my writing on cassettes, which I think Diane Warren, famous American songwriter, I think she uses cassettes.
She does. She's a friend. She's a friend of mine, and her room is messier than yours.
Is it true that she uses cassettes?
Yes.
There you go and stuff. So I prefer them to the digital devices. Are wonderful. They're very tiny. They're brilliant. They sound great. Cassettes are easy to work with. They don't sound great, but it doesn't matter if it's a good song. It doesn't matter how rough it sounds. And so my music room is everything. It's organized chaos and stuff. When the kids were little, of course they could come in, and I have lovely cassettes where it's with the 3 of us just playing around and them singing little tunes with me and stuff. Kind of very special for them when they hear them now. But that's it. I mean, it's organized chaos because it looks a mess, but for me, everything is where I want it to be. And God forbid I came home and things were moved. I would be in a...
You're admittedly OCD. You talk about that. Every rug has to be in the right place.
Yeah, obsessive compulsive. I am, but not in a bad way.
No.
I mean, the bathroom has 2 sinks, one for my wife and one for me.
Wow.
So I can do all the cleaning around the sink and it's
called friendly OCD.
Yes.
So when your kids were growing up, did they express any interest in music, or did you steer them towards it, or were you just open to whatever they want to do? We're just going to support.
Well, we encourage them, of course, to get into music. It's an important part of education to get into music. So Helen tried piano but didn't really work out. So she went on to the violin, and the younger daughter Tara went on to the cello. So they did that for a reasonable amount of time, and then they move on. But I didn't push them to want to get. I'm lucky that, unlike, say, Paul Simon's son made records, Paul McCartney's son made records. It's a very difficult thing to follow successful.
The hardest thing having in the shadow.
Heart goes out to them for the struggle that they have.
As I mentioned before, your documentary, and I'm sure this is the way you are in real life, has so many great chunks of wisdom in it that I just loved. One of my favorite is you're talking about letting your fame go and then having a rebirth, or, people that do their final tour 7 times. You say if you get off the train, meaning you retire from your career, you should not be allowed back on the train. The key is to not get off the train in the first place.
Yeah, get off the, it's, I think if you stop and then, disappear and then do a comeback, I don't think it's that good. Stay on the turntable, whatever it is. I think that's more because it keeps you up there. I think if you get it off, you lose something. You come back, maybe you're not for the right reasons and stuff. But if you're always on the treadmill, if you keep on it and you enjoy it and you're good at it, then stick with it.
And you're very disciplined too. Like, maybe this is a part of your OCD that's a good quality, but you're very disciplined with your writing and you treat it like your job. Tell us about your schedule.
Well, the writing is very much like the Brill Building mentality, Louise. Brill Building is in New York, where the likes of Carole King and Neil Sedaka, they would all go in to write songs. Don Kirshner had the publishing company, he owned the building. So they clock in at 9 o'clock, go into a room with a piano or with a guitar, and sit there till 5 o'clock to come up with songs. And so that mentality, that discipline, is what I use myself. I start, I sit for 8 hours a day. I'll sit at the piano to try and come up with melodies. If I come up with a good melody, I'll put it on cassette, move on, try and come up with another one. It doesn't matter that you haven't finished that melody or finished a lyric to it. The key to a good melody is that if it's good, it can, you can use it at any time.
Have you written for other people?
No. I just write for myself. That's enough trouble.
So you've had many covers. Now, do people have to ask your permission to cover a song?
No, I don't think so. If you were to do a copy, Louise, it's fine. I mean, all you need to be careful of is not changing lyrics and stuff. As long as you stick to the lyric, then your version would be as good as anybody's.
Are you confident in that? Have you heard me sing?
But then you get the rights, like ASCAP or BMI, or somebody has to pay you the rights for this person you haven't recorded your song, right? That's how you benefit from it.
I guess so. I mean, again, I don't go into the detail on that and stuff. I'm happy. I mean, I didn't come into the business for it to make money. I come in to be a success. I'm not unhappy that I've earned money because of it. But I think that if people write to me and say that give them a little help on career choices, I always maintain that to be a success, it's not about wanting to make a lot of money. It's for the love of what you want to do. And if it's songwriting, the love of songwriting should get you somewhere. Yeah. But if you're in it to be a success and make money, then go and work in a bank.
Yeah, I think money, for any creative endeavor, money should be a byproduct. You should do the thing that you love.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous, Louise, to have that approach, that wanting to something you get mixed up. Do it for the right reason.
So you're going to be coming to the West Coast. You're going to be in Phoenix on November 22nd. You're going to be in San Francisco on November 24th, and you're going to be in Los Angeles on November 25th. Tell folks what they could expect to see when they come to your show.
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of just the two of us, my guitarist and myself, over 2 hours and up close and personal, which is nice for the reason, again, as I said earlier, you can hear the lyrics clearly. And it's just, they're all my songs. That there's fast, slow, medium, and different styles and stuff, which I think is a good thing for you as a writer to have that. So, you know, thus far it's worked. I'm so looking forward to coming to.
Is
California.
this a continuation of a tour you've already started where you were in your...
We did earlier this year, late last year, end of last year. We were in the north part. We were in New York, those areas and stuff. And what we did 3 years ago when we came to New York, and we did a couple of shows in California. We stayed over. What we did this time was we did the shows in the New York area, and then we came home, and then we're coming back for you. So we're all looking forward to appearing in Los Angeles, of course, and really looking forward to coming up to San Francisco. And actually, after we've done the 3 shows, we're going to Honolulu.
Oh.
We're going to do 2 shows in Honolulu. And then we'll have a couple of days off and come home. So that will round off the year in a kind of nice way.
Really nice. Yeah.
Before we go, talk about your new album, your latest album.
Driven. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's people say, why be called it Driven? I guess I pretty much summed it up talking to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you have that in you. It's that you have that kind of drive, which I think is important to have at your age, because you get to a point where, you know, maybe you should be slowing down. I'm not slowing down.
I agree. I'm the same way.
As determined as ever. So I'm really happy with the album. I work with different producers on every album because I feel it's always the same singer, always the same songwriter. So it's kind of nice to have new blood in the producer who works with you, because the element that they bring to it will make that difference. There's a danger if it's always you with the same musicians, the same producer, same artist, the same song. So it's good to have that variation, and I think that's what a different producer brings. Current producer is Andy Wright. He produces Simply Red. He produces Simple Minds. And the nice thing with this album is I have 2 duets. One is with Mick Hucknall from Simply Red. I knew he was a fan of mine.
Yeah.
And so therefore, because we had the same producer, he said to my producer when he went to meet up with him, you know, if Ray has got a song, I'd love to sing a duet with him. So that worked out really nice for a song called Let Bygones Be Bygones. And the other duet is with a Scottish singer called Katie Tunstall. Yeah. And she's had some success in America, Katie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And with Suddenly I See was a big success for her. So
and you've got...
sent her this.
Yeah, no, finish your thought. Finish your thought.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say on your website, which we'll have in the show notes, that there's a video with KT.
Yeah. And that was the nice thing. I hadn't done a video in 20 years. So we had a really nice time because she recorded the song in California where she's based. And of course, we didn't meet up until she came over for the video. But it worked out really well because when we recorded the song, we felt it would be good for a duet. And then I said to Andy, I said, you know, maybe we should approach Katie because Suddenly I See the success she had, a similar kind of feel. And she really loved the song.
Oh,
and she put her part on over there. And as I say, came over for the video. We spent the day together, talked about music, had a really nice time.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yeah, I advise everyone to check it out. And folks can find you on Spotify. And where else should folks look for you?
In the garden. I don't have a mobile phone, Louise. I'm not really computer literate. I'm totally computer illiterate.
You're a saint. How have you survived?
My daughter runs the show. You know, for example, I buy records. I want CDs. I want to sit down with the CD, look at the booklet and stuff. But as you know yourself, with streaming and stuff, what happens is if I say to my daughter, I've heard this great track, can you get it for me? She'll just press a button. And it's so, I mean, I want a copy. I want to be able to take that copy and sit down in my music room and listen to it. It's a different world, but it amounts to the same thing, a love of music, whether it's streaming, whether it's on this or that. You mentioned at the beginning, listening to you with podcasts and stuff. It's amazing how popular they've become. Because I've been listening to the one Paul McCartney has done with the man who put out the book on all his lyrics.
Yes.
And so now
What's that one called? I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, McCartney has talked to him about all the songs. And
it's the Hulu documentary. What's the guy's name?
Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
But is that the same one?
No, it's not Rick Rubin.
Oh.
Okay.
It's the guy who did, I think last year or earlier this year, McCartney released put out a book of all his song lyrics and stuff. And the man who put it together, the author who put it together,
I want to hear that.
is the one who's done the podcast and the one where McCartney talks about various songs. And so it's very interesting. Very interesting.
We'll find that and we'll have that in the show notes. So you do sometimes listen to digital content. Do you stream movies? Do you guys watch, and do you have an Apple TV or a Roku? Do you watch films?
Yeah, but I need my daughter very often to come in and get the political.
Yeah, tech support.
Yep.
That's why we have children.
That's right. Listen, I tell you, it's an honor to talk to you, sir, and thank you for putting all these beautiful sounds into the universe. And I know that you're going to have a successful tour of the U.S., particularly here in Los Angeles. Welcome to town.
Thank you to you. Thank you to you and Louise, Fritz. I really enjoyed talking to you guys.
I'm so glad.
We enjoyed talking to you. Okay, I'm gonna read our closing credits. Thank you so much for joining us. We would love to continue this conversation with you on Instagram and Twitter, where we are at MediaPath Pod, and on Facebook, where our show page is MediaPath Podcast, and our Facebook group is MediaPath with Fritz and Wheezy Podcast Community. You can find full video podcast episodes loaded with bonus visual content on our YouTube channel, MediaPath Podcast. You can write to us at MediaPathPodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please give us a nice rating in Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel and talk about us on social media if you would. You can sign up for our spicy little newsletter at MediaPathPodcast.com. We want to thank our wonderful guest, Gilbert O'Sullivan. Our team includes producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Bill Filipiak, Thomas Hubble, Mason Brown, Lori DeWall, Garrett Arch, Chris Baldwin, Jordan Reyes, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I am Louise Palanker here with Fritz Coleman. Be well and wise, and we will see you along the media path. That was awesome.
That was so wonderful, Gilbert. Thank you so much.
We can call you Ray.